And I am super honored to introduce the next speakers, storytellers. It's Jolissa and Ethan. Their story is 1 family, 2 suicide attempts, and 3 lessons.
Hi, my name is Jolissa, and I'm here with my son Ethan, and we're going to share our story of 1 family, 2 suicides, and 3 lessons. My story starts with being fathered by a monster who took away my innocence and replaced it with childhood trauma, repressed memories, and low self-esteem. Those led to major depression and alcoholism, 2 things that sucked me under like a riptide and took away my life and everything good in it. I'm here with my son Ethan because our stories are connected by mental illness, by depression, and by suicide. My issues convinced me that everyone, especially Ethan, would be better off without me. So when he was 5, I left him with his dad, and I disappeared to die.
Hi, I'm Ethan. I live with anxiety and depression, and growing up, no one knew I was also on the autism spectrum. And growing up, my family painted a very clear picture of what a boy is, was, and is supposed to be. But I felt myself at odds with this ideal boyhood. I was sensitive, cautious, and very much opposed to the extreme, and especially the dangerous. And like all boys growing up, some boys called me gay. And at the time, I had to think of it as more of a diagnosis than an insult. Is that why I'm so different? I wondered, but no answers ever came.
I had no idea that he was suffering, and I had no idea that there was a name for what I was doing. At age 23, the term passive suicide was not something I was familiar with. I couldn't understand why life seemed to be dumping all over me and not everyone else. Why couldn't it just be easy? Why couldn't I just be normal? It took a long time for me to understand that the things that I thought were awful, like totaling my car, living on the streets, and even spending a few weeks in jail at Twin Towers, were actually my veiled attempts at suicide. You see, I knew I wanted to die. I just never connected the thoughts with the actions. I mean, if I made really bad decisions and I happen to die, it's just my time, right?
The first time I remember feeling like the world would be better off without me, I was 8. At that time, suicide was like a bite in my cheek, which as the years progressed would turn into a festering sore. I found acceptance rare in the real world. I was better at texting than talking, and I found approval online. So convinced that the world away from my computer was not for me, I let myself slip away. After 17 years of feeling utterly alone, no one knew how close to the edge I had gotten, not even me.
It took me 3 years to hit bottom, to finally see what I had done to myself, to my family, and to my son. To stop wanting to die and to start wanting to build a life that I could be happy in. But what I missed most was Ethan. I got into therapy, I got into recovery, I got better. But my experiences with depression and addiction and passive suicide taught me 3 important lessons. The first one was a biggie. Everything happens for a reason. There are no accidents.
For 9 years, I thought about killing myself, tonguing constantly at that sore in my mouth. And then it was 2012, the summer before my senior year of high school, and July 11th, senior pictures, was the only day of the entire summer that I had to be responsible, and I failed to show up. The following day, when my parents found out, we got into an argument and they took my computer away.
As parents, you never seek to hurt your children, but it's something that's often done. During the argument, I said to him, "We ask so little of you. Aren't you tired of disappointing us?" His dad was frustrated and angry and said he didn't want to look at him.
While this confrontation with my parents was nothing extreme or unusual, for some reason on that day, at that time, one tongue poke too many and that festering sore opened up. I lost myself in a sea of self-loathing and rot. So later that day, when the house was empty, I unlocked my dad's gun safe in tears, but what happened on that day did not take my life, but took me on another path.
There's a lot to talk about here. A lot of pain, a lot of healing, but mostly there was learning. You see, I had put all my faith in these lessons. I had been touting them for years, But as the EMTs carried him out of the house and carried him off to the hospital, I questioned myself. Everything happens for a reason, huh? Even this? Is there a reason for this?
Although none of us could have known it at the time, yes, there was a reason, and the reason is this, so that we can be on this stage sharing our stories. You see, my mother knew that I was going to survive, but the doctors were quick to challenge her with statistics and studies, and the rest of the medical staff tried to dissuade her. As my intracranial pressure continued to rise and my heart rate dip, the odds of me surviving with any quality of life continued to shrink.
That's where lesson number 2 comes in. Much like yin and yang and day and night and up and down, I've come to understand that into every life some rain must fall. Lesson 2 became clear with this simple phrase: without the sour, there is no sweet. If all you ever have is sweet, there's no context until you add some sour. The sour gives meaning. It gives the sweet a holy reverence. Now, I'm not saying that those sour days are easy. Those sour days can be terrifying, debilitating, and raw. The weeks that we spent in the ICU, the fear of losing him, the unknown future, those were all sour. Beyond sour, they were bitter, horrendous, awful days. But those led to recovery. The nights we spent listening to the machines breathe for him became the unimaginably sweet sound of hearing his voice again for the first time. Watching him relearn how to walk and take those first painful steps in the hospital became watching him walk down the aisle with his class at graduation. No, without the sour, there is no context for the sweet.
These lessons are my mother's, and she has passed them on to me, and I must admit to her and to you now that I still have trouble accepting them. It's hard for me to see the reasons for it all, and I have trouble waiting for the sour to get to the sweet. But the last lesson is one that I fully understand. One simple truth, which is simply that nothing lasts forever. While our lives have ups and downs, trials and tribulations, the great news is they are temporary, and this too shall pass.
These lessons are not new, and we are not the first to experience them. But our lives have been made whole with the acceptance of these 3 truths. Everything happens for a reason. Without the sour, there is no sweet, and this too shall pass. We offer them to you with the fervent wish that they shed light, bring hope, and provide you with some of the unimaginable gratitude and relief that we have received. This is our brave.